Well, this is Focus on the Family, and that is Dianna DePaul, the adoptive mother of Gianna, Jessen, who was here to tell her story about her biological mother's decision to abort her and how God has impacted her life. What a powerful statement about God's sovereignty, my goodness, and about the value of every life. I was so touched when we first aired this broadcast some time ago, and so glad that we could come back to that and hear Gianna's story.
Well, what a graphic illustration, John, that we're talking about babies here. We're not talking about fetuses. We're talking about human beings, a little girl that grew up to be this beautiful child, and now an adult who's involved in speaking for the unborn child. I just think that's a very inspirational story.
Oh, that's the word that came to my mind. And I wanted to update our listeners. Gianna is doing well. She's living in Tennessee, following some musical interests that she has. She's very active physically, despite her cerebral palsy, and doing rock climbing and running. And she's had opportunities to testify in Congress on a couple of occasions, and she tells us that one of the highlights of her life was meeting President Bush on the occasion of his signature for the Born Alive Infant Protection Act.
The word indomitable comes to mind when I think of Gianna. Carrie, what were you thinking of as you heard this wonderful message?
That no life is a mistake. No human life that God creates in His image is a mistake. God has a plan for every life. And for women who may find themselves in an unintended pregnancy, to just be assured that God does have a plan for them. And a baby is a good thing. And Gianna is a perfect example of that.
John, you mentioned that she said meeting President George W. Bush was the highlight of her life. You know, he continues to speak very eloquently about the unborn child and about his commitment and the commitment of his administration to life at all ages. And I deeply appreciate that. In fact, I mentioned on Rita Cosby's program, it's called Foxwire, that's on the Fox News channel. That was last Sunday
Sunday
night.
evening, yes.
I said during that interview that I thought President George W. Bush has done more to protect life at all ages than any president in history, you know, having promoted the Mexico City policy that banned overseas abortions with U.S. funds, and, of course, his opposition to partial birth abortion and cloning and stem cell research, and on it goes. This man really is committed to life, and I have to admit, I wasn't sure when he became president, and I was critical of him at one point because he had mentioned Christine Todd Whitman, the former governor of New Jersey, as a possible running mate, and she was pro-abortion, so I didn't know where he was coming from. I am very relieved and pleased that there's something in this man's heart. He really is telling the truth.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And, you know, he also, you didn't mention it, but he also signed the Born Alive Infant Protection Act.
Yes.
And Gianna was there when he signed it. I thought it was interesting that when he signed that, he said something to the effect of this. We can see clearly that unborn children are members of the human family. I mean, it was a clear affirmation that preborn children are human, something that a lot of folks just don't want to admit.